Thank you for joining us today. With my fellow panelists today, we will be speaking about cryptos, and we will be looking at that from the lens of the new markets in crypto assets regulation, MiCA. So yeah, let's kick it off to what I hope to be a very insightful discussion, guys. I think I'll kick off with Menelaos from Invest Cyprus. You see, traditionally, we've seen a lot of caution around the crypto assets market, especially from the regulator side, but also from the side of the investors. We now have the MiCA regulation that has come in. What are your views about how MiCA is expected to maybe shift that perception of the space being looked at with a slight caution?
First of all, good afternoon, Christia, and to my fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be with you here today in what will surely turn out to be a very fascinating panel discussion. Now, I think MiCA possesses great potential, actually, and it can do for crypto what the MiFID directive managed to do for the financial markets, and that is to instill certain elements in the ecosystem which are currently missing from the puzzle, and that's trust, integrity, as well as transparency. And the reason is that I'm not going to delve too deeply into the details of MiCA, but it manages to touch upon a variety of stakeholders within the crypto space. So it involves basically advisory firms, portfolio managers, crypto issuers, stablecoin issuers, exchanges, as well as wallets. And for the first time in history, it actually necessitates them to undertake a variety of actions, including the posting of collateral, the holding of capital reserves, the publishing of white papers, which kind of resemble a stock prospectus, so to speak, as well as to comply with anti-market manipulation rules. Now, in my opinion, MiCA comes at a very important moment in the trajectory of cryptos because we're also witnessing the diversification of cryptocurrencies as well as the evolvement. So cryptocurrencies arguably started off with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the wide plethora of meme coins whose value was basically almost entirely driven by hype. Now, an important distinction between Bitcoin and Ethereum is the fact that Bitcoin operates through a proof of work consensus mechanism, which has been highly criticized to necessitate very high energy consumption requirements. And Ethereum, on the other hand, operates via proof of stake consensus mechanism, which manages to reduce its cost by 99%. Nowadays, we're also witnessing the spawn of coins of very different nature, including AI agents, DeFi tokens, as well as decentralized science tokens, which in my opinion have the power to fundamentally transform the economy in the way we know it today. I mean, if we just take decentralized science as an example, the bio protocol was actually listed on Binance, if I'm not mistaken, in the last quarter of 2024. And for those of you who don't know, the bio protocol contains 12 decentralized autonomous organizations underneath it. And each DAO is attached to a specific research project. And each DAO also has an exclusive token, which is used to crowdfund the projects. And by the way, these projects are not unimportant. I mean, they're focusing on hair transplants, cryogenesis, researching the impact of long COVID on its patients, and so on. So in the aftermath of MiCA, we're witnessing generally, we're seeing very positive messages about the adoption of crypto in a very wide context. I mean, starting off from the US, and even though the US still hasn't published its legislation, dedicated legislation to cryptos like the EU, we're seeing two of the largest asset managers in the world, namely Fidelity and BlackRock, already launching their Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Most of you in this room probably know that the current president of the United States declared his commitment to make Bitcoin a strategic reserve, as well as make the United States the crypto capital of the world. Very recently, we examined our neighbors in the Middle East. During the Dubai FinTech Summit, the government of the UAE announced its plan to begin accepting payments in cryptocurrencies in exchange for the provision of government services. And this was in large, I think, due to the partnership of the Ministry of Finance with Crypto.com. Now, turning our attention back to the EU, after the MiCA regulation was announced, there were approximately 1.2 thousand applications for MiCA licensing filed across the EU. And even though only half of them to date have managed to receive the license, I do believe this number to increase substantially by year-end because many of the rejected applicants were eventually turned down because of the incorrect filing of the application documents. And I believe the same will apply to the case of Cyprus eventually. As things stand, Cyprus only has a very limited number of reputable companies having being able to having successfully basically securing the license. And I do expect this number to increase, considering that by the end of 2024, my fellow panelists who is at CySEC can correct me if I'm wrong, but by the end of 2024, I think there were 16 CASPs registered under CySEC. So when it comes to the sectoral adoption of cryptocurrencies and what MiCA was able to do about this, I think it's best to consider blockchain, the underpinning technology of cryptocurrencies, as being an interoperable technology, as well as a technology which can span both horizontally and vertically across sectors. And it's important to consider that some exchanges are already liberated. I mean, if we take the example of Germany, the Stuttgart Digital Exchange has already received its MiCA license. We're seeing in France, Société Générale issuing the first blockchain-based bond. And our neighbors in Eastern Europe, they're launching the first blockchain collector coin. And they're also using blockchain in Estonia, if I remember correctly, to secure government registries. So there's a lot of work to be done. And when I have to apply to the Cyprus context, I think the EU is Cyprus is slightly lagging behind its peers. And I think this can be attributed to two major reasons, despite the introduction of MiCA. First of all, for MiCA to be truly embraced and propel a movement towards adopting a pro-crypto attitude, I think both the public and the private sector need to work in unison and in a very structured manner, which I don't believe is the case in Cyprus currently. And secondly, I think the reason relates to a cultural phenomenon. I mean, Cypriots in general, I think, have a very risk-averse mindset. And if we take the capital allocation strategies of Cypriots as an indicator, currently 80% of Cypriot capital sits in deposits in banks in the form of cash and cash equivalents, with cash equivalents basically being short-term money market instruments that can be quickly converted into cash.
Thank you for that, Menelaos. I don't know if any of our co-panelists wants to chip in, but I have a follow-up on what you said. You said earlier that the private sector and maybe the regulators don't see eye to eye currently. And maybe that was due to the fact that there was no regulatory framework within which they could both coexist and feel sort of confident in the exposures that crypto may bring forward. Do you think now with the MiCA regulation that we could be seeing a change from that and we could see more of an alignment between the two, and any of our panelists can take the question? You can go.
Hi, everybody. So join on what my fellow panelist Menelaos said. I think, MiCA has been a huge phenomenon for our days. One of the first movers in the world of digital asset space that has provided a unified, I would say, coherent piece of legislative framework that would provide the necessary, let's say, attractiveness, creditworthiness as well, and the confidence and trust that the industry has been requiring for the last 10 or so years. So being one of the first movers within the digital asset space in the world, that has, called for major players, major stakeholders to set up in the EU, including Cyprus to a very great extent, initially at least, and operate and provide their crypto-related services and products within a framework that inspired confidence and trust, and thus have an appeal to the wider investor public, as well as the authorities in general and other stakeholders within that frame. Moving on, I think, MiCA, what it also provides is, so it is a regulation, it's not a directive. That, in essence, means that anybody licensed under MiCA can use that very same license and provide the services they have been licensed for in the host member state, home member state to host member states. Now, this takes away all those, legal and other operational burdens that somebody would face if he had, say, one license in Cyprus and they needed another license in a separate member state. So one MiCA license is the gateway to 400, I would say 50 or so million investor base in the European Union. And now, apart from that, I think the very last point that MiCA provides, and this is again, up to a debate, up to further discussion in the details of it as well, but it essentially mimics to a very great extent the MiFID requirements that have been persistent in the financial services industry for the last 15 years. MiFID 1, MiFID 2 now, they're looking to update that, amend it. So we have under MiCA custody rules, we have transparency, investor protection, reporting, auditing, prudential requirements, a clear supervisory guideline for the member state regulator to be able to refer to and enforce. And that in itself, I think, again, brings MiCA and the crypto digital asset space within an existingly acceptable, I would say, regulatory framework that everybody is more or less familiar with. And therefore, again, building on trust, building on confidence to basically engage with crypto and crypto services. Again, admittedly, we have a lot of work to do. I think we're lagging as against our competitors in the EU. Malta, notably, BaFin in Germany, the AMF in France, the AMF in the Netherlands. I think there's a lot of work to be done. There's a huge opportunity for us, I would say, as a jurisdiction, to grab on it and welcome all those that have came and seek further opportunities for other capital, foreign direct investment capital that may be interested in setting up in Cyprus. As I said, not everything is ideal. However, we should keep on it, keep the gas on, and with a lot of confidence and trust, I think we can move forward.
And I guess that's a lot of work that we have to do from an ecosystem point of view, and probably something that Invest Cyprus would have to be pushing for as
Absolutely.
well as the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission. And just turning a little bit to Loukas, Grigoris just mentioned that MiCA is bringing a level playing field, I guess, across member states, but we can see some of the earlier adopters having some competitive advantage. And until today, I thought that Cyprus was one of the relatively early adopters, having allowed for licensing through CySEC even before the MiCA regulation. And I'd like to ask you, from your knowledge so far, have you seen any patterns of any preferred member states being used so far? And if so, how would Cyprus compare with those?
Look, if we see the pre-MiCA, pre-legal regulatory framework, the shift was mostly fragmented, was focused mostly on the low regulatory barriers, where we saw significant application, more than 1,000 to Poland. We saw big volumes also in Lithuania, and then as you go down, the barrier of regulation increase. We saw Italy, Germany have some application, and that create fragmentation about customer protection. Now with MiCA, we enhance the regulatory framework, the significant client improvement, and also this push out of operational expenses and different startups, because they increase in the regulatory compliance, they have issues with their banking rails that they face, and it's also creating this alignment with MiCA and difficult. For example, if you are now in different jurisdictions and you have a CASP license, you cannot even apply for MiCA license in several countries. Where in Cyprus, with CySEC, we early align the MiCA requirements with the local legislation. So we see a significant interest from international companies to establish their global headquarters in Cyprus. And this is not just because of the alignment, it's because of the proactiveness, it's because they can found companies in Cyprus to acquire in order to create different MiFID products. Is also this a dynamic industry that is constantly involved. So you need a regulator that is approachable, they can provide you feedback and have effective communication. This is a significant added value, I believe, in Cyprus. And in CySEC in general, they're going to give some license for MiFID, but they're not going to review in every detail to those systematic companies. Because you don't want to rush into authorization or give license to everyone, because it's going to create side effects, and you're going to ask, it's going to be with ESMA, peer review. And this rush authorization is going to kill the industry, technically. So we need to have constant communication with ESMA, with regulatory international, in order to involve and give the right framework and the right license to the right companies that they have the right operational model. And with MiCA, it's going to enhance the customer protection, and it's going to create different side effects. For example, the payments industry is going to benefit because with the customer confidence, you will see a lot of Web2 companies like eBay, Amazon, even Starbucks to start using crypto as a form of payments.
Absolutely.
So imagine the volumes that the daily users they have these Web2 companies, they are bigger than the existing crypto adoption. So by increasing the confidence to those traditional companies to accept crypto as a form of payments, it's going to create side effects. So motor CASP license, they're going to increase the form of payment as a crypto. And we can see pre-MiCA around the European share of global trading volume in crypto was around 25%. 22, 23 was around 25%. And after the implementation of MiCA, we see a big spike. Right now, it's around 35% of global share of global crypto trading volume. This is important. And for this, they want business to establish under legal framework in order to compare the protection of investors similar to stocks, similar to shares, that they are not scared. So all this is going to improve the confidence, and we're going to see different side events in the economy.
I agree, and I think it goes also back to what Menelaos was saying earlier, that we're expecting even more adoption. So the more it's used, the more it's going to be used. So the more we're going to be seeing transactions in crypto, and therefore we need to all make sure that we feel confident in doing so. And MiCA is going to definitely help with that.
And also MiCA doesn't cover all the elements of crypto. It doesn't cover DeFi, breaches, also some stable coins. And this is involved, it's not only involved on the crypto ecosystem, I believe it's going to be some involvement also from the regulator.
Absolutely. And I'd like to turn to Anatoly for a minute. You are a market participant yourself, and one with multiple licenses. You have specifically presence in Switzerland. And I would like to ask you, how do you see, from a regulatory standpoint, the MiCA regulation from outside in? Do you think it's fit for purpose? Do you think it will enable innovation and growth? And how does it compare with the likes of Switzerland, where you operate?
Hello everyone. Nice to meet you all here. So, first of all, MiCA for us, it's a new chapter to enhance our businesses. And beside transparency, beside the new adoption of MiCA, we have access to European market. And what is more importantly, we see that it enables not only CASP, but financial institutions, brokerage banks to access digital assets market. And for us, it's not like new competitors, but it's a new services and products we can have by providing this FI relationship with banks, with our expertise and technology that we gain from our CASP license. And secondly, regarding comparison with Swiss and other market, we see that at the moment, I would say that MiCA is the first stage of regulation in crypto. It enables payments. It has the transparency for all the procedures with digital assets. But at the same time, we expect that in future we will have additional clarity how this market should go further with the decentralized market, with the new protocols, with the, I would say, new relationships behind this technology. So comparing MiCA and Swiss regulation, we see that Swiss has some advantages because of the additional opportunities and products we can provide by Banking Act in Swiss and its modification according to digital assets market. But at the same time, this first stage is very important for us because new services, new adoption, a lot of work to be done.
Thank you for that, Anatoly. So have you seen your business strategy change at all with the introduction of MiCA? away from traditional products and into new ones, or do you continue, choosing to adapt to MiCA simply as a new regulation that you have to fit in?
I can't say that we shift our strategy, because just the strategy behind was to provide all the services under one window in digital assets, but micro-regulation enables us to provide new services and products. For example, especially we have new opportunities in this FI relationship plus. What we see since MiCA was introduced, usual businesses see that this type of assets also might be applied in their day-by-day business, not only to store and invest, but also to do payments. So that's why we expect that technology for safekeeping, for payments is also important and new opportunity for future growth.
And you gave me a very good platform there to discuss about a subject closer to my heart, which is payments and financial services, and maybe a question to Menelaos. How do you see the banking and the payment sector evolving now, generally speaking, but also under the MiCA lens? Do you expect to see some sort of alignment between the market players, or do you expect to have pushback from both like key stakeholders like regulators, but also from traditional players in the market?
Yeah. I mean, look, historically speaking, I mean, the Cyprus Central Bank, as well as the commercial banks in general and the payment sector, have been historically cautious. And in my opinion, and this is not because I used to work in a bank, I think it's for a good reason. And when it comes to crypto, the CBC, as well as all the commercial banks, have clearly steered clear from any crypto exposure. And in fact, if I remember correctly, on February 2025, CBC explicitly stated that they do not view cryptocurrencies as being fit to serve as strategic reserves. Now I know that I'm painting a dystopian future, but to be honest, we shouldn't be too harsh on the banks. I mean, the banks have been through a lot. They had a very big NPL crisis they had to resolve. They also have a very extensive corporate governance framework that they need to comply with, which basically implies that decision-making within the institutions is slow. And also, they have an ever-increasing number of regulations imposed by the CBC. The European Central Bank, excuse me. And last but not least, I mean, due to their systemic nature, I mean, we should think of the opposite. In the case that the banks do indeed go and embrace this technology, and this technology turns out badly, I mean, it can have repercussions for both the bank and the economy in general, because a simple trail of thought would reveal that the banks would get downgraded by the credit rating agencies. It would increase their cost of borrowing, which would subsequently increase their cost of capital, which would be passed on to consumers in the open market, and so on. Nonetheless, because of this, there are unfortunate side effects in the crypto industry. First of all, I mean, crypto firms have zero access to banking services. And secondly, fintechs are unable to integrate any crypto-linked solutions within the system. All things considered, however, I do believe that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. First of all, the light comes from MiCA, because what MiCA essentially gives is credibility to those MiCA licensed firms to be able to go to the doorstep of the banks and ask access. So that's number one. Secondly, I think if we take an inspection of the banking sector in the EU landscape, we'll see that the major players are not only adapting to the new technology, but they're evolving with it. Again, the example of Société Générale, actually, I think it's the only traditional bank in Europe currently which issued a euro-denominated stablecoin and is listed on an exchange. And in Germany, which you mentioned to be a pioneer in cryptos, Solaris Bank is using APIs to facilitate crypto custody and trading. And as such, in this case, it empowers crypto firms to embed within the system their crypto-linked cards. And I think the biggest indicator that there is an element of optimism about the future is what the global payment networks are doing. And these references to what you said before, that Starbucks and other big conglomerates are accepting crypto payments. I mean, if we consider MasterCard, for instance, it has already established its first crypto-linked cards. And on top of that, it's using its partnership with Kraken to process stablecoin payments using public blockchains like Ethereum. And what this means for the audience to get an understanding is that the consumers, the acquirers of goods and services, can buy the good or service using crypto, but if I'm the seller and I provide you this good or service, I get paid through fiat currency. And by the same token, a similar story applies in the case of Visa, which is currently processing has already processed more than 200 million in stablecoin payments, and is also working with banks to develop crypto-linked cards. So I do believe that the banking system and the payment sector in general will converge. It's just that I believe the speed of convergence will be slower. And if I'm asked to predict how this will happen, I think usually, again, with reference to the very extensive corporate governance framework that I referred to, I think banks will choose to acquire these capabilities externally, either through the formation of partnerships or through a wave of mergers and acquisitions that we might see in the industry. And before closing, I would like to raise another point, which is I consider to be very important. It's the central bank digital currency, which is basically going to bring to us unprecedented and unforeseen risks and advantages, because currently, I mean, the EU CBDC has been in piloting phase since 2023, and it's expected to run through all over until the end of 2025. Globally, there are more than 100 countries which are currently piloting central bank digital currencies. And in the case that CBDCs get legitimized, it will be the first time in history where retail customers will have the choice of 3 currencies: cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, and fiat currency. But the paradox in this case is that CBDCs and cryptocurrencies have completely different objectives. I mean, CBDC's aim is to maintain monetary control and improve the efficiency of payments, whilst on the other hand, cryptocurrencies facilitate financial independence, financial autonomy, and for the investors who have the stomach, the generation of real alpha.
Thank you for that, Menelaos. I don't know if Loukas wants to add any points on what to expect on the payments side.
Look, in payments, I can see blockchain payment rails is a direct competitor of SEPA and SWIFT, especially with cross-border payments. It's eliminating the fraction of many counterparties. It's eliminating the fraction of slow transactions. So, and to be fully transparent here, my honest opinion is blockchain rails is acting like a serial killer of traditional banking inefficiencies. So it's eliminating systematically the shortcomings: slow transactions, high fees, accessibility, involve too many counterparties. Imagine you are, for example, you are a coffee importer from Brazil and you have to pay your supplier in Brazil. How this is going to happen with SWIFT? You have to convert your euro to dollar, your dollar to Brazilian reals, high fees. You have to involve 2-3 different counterparties, high fees, slow process. Where with blockchain, this can happen instantly. So this is the core fundamentals that is shifting and is rewrite technically the rules, especially with member states with SEPA Instant. Yes, we can, let's say, it's more competitive with crypto, but in cross-border payments, this is significantly different. And with MiCA, all the establishment of safeguarding the robust framework, this is going to increase. Yes, for a global business, maybe they need to establish different licenses across global in order to overcome some liquidity issue with USDT, for example. So they need to shift their strategy. But it's also on the other side is adding new revenue streams like embedded finance solutions, as you mentioned, prepaid cards. You can deposit crypto in order to spend for your coffee, for your daily expenses directly. So there is a significant shift on the payment methodology that the people are using going forward.
Thank you for that. And we talked a little bit about opportunities. Anatoly, would you like to maybe share your experience in terms of challenges that you're facing in the space of crypto, and maybe we can bring it back to Cyprus a little bit, and you can give us a bit of your views of what we could be doing maybe better.
First of all, on the MiCA, we have a lot of stuff to do to leverage all the opportunities that we may have under this new regulation. Regarding challenges we have, and we see a lot of technology stuff inside these safekeeping procedures. Now we have only very few providers that enable us to scale the services for business needs. So if previously with a small amount of assets it was just one person to access the digital assets payments, but now we need to build this custodian infrastructure with all the authorization policies like we have in traditional markets. So this is our main challenge we focus on. Second challenge we also see in back office system when we need to adjust our classical traditional financial brokerage or payment services for digital assets area, especially for FX rates, for high volatility market, how to do reporting and so on and so forth. And the next stage is to leverage the opportunities in decentralized infrastructure. So this is the next step we will see under stage 2 in MiCA.
And just to bring it a little bit back to our great small island of Cyprus, Menelaos, from Invest Cyprus point of view, if we were to make Cyprus a crypto hub, right? What would be the main pillars that as Invest Cyprus you would need to be tapping into in order to make that happen?
First of all, I think in order for a country, any country, not just Cyprus, to become a hub, it presupposes that a well-functioning ecosystem is in place. In my opinion, in the case of Cyprus, when it comes to crypto, the ecosystem is still not well functioning, and there is still work that needs to be done, in my opinion, very quickly. Otherwise, we run the risk of becoming an EU licensing center. I mean, a first glance inspection of Cyprus will reveal actually that the foundations are robust. I mean, we have one of the lowest corporate tax rates in the EU. Our geostrategic position is great. Kudos to CySEC for being the primary implementers of the MiCA regulation, as well as having the regulatory sandbox. We have an educated workforce which ranks way above the EU average. However, one central pillar that will essentially render Cyprus as a well-functioning ecosystem is talent. And even though back office administration talent is abundant in Cyprus, and I'm referring to lawyers, accountants, compliance, etc., when it comes to the real technical labor force, which underpins a blockchain/crypto-based ecosystem, I think we are severely lacking compared to other EU peers who are competing with us. And I'm referring here to blockchain engineers, blockchain architects, and so on. And even though we have attractive immigration schemes in place, like the digital nomad visa, and we have recently restructured the startup visa, I believe we need to consider what our neighbors are doing and take note from them. And in this case, maybe we should include more targeted measures for the professionals we want to attract, which is something that Portugal and the UAE did. And I don't want to be too radical, but I think we should consider at both the public and the private level the introduction of free economic zones, or in the case I want to avoid this level of radicalism, I believe we should, and this is my responsibility as well, we should develop a framework which introduces the right tax incentives to attract the right labor, depending on the industry that you want to push forward. An additional point I would like to raise is infrastructure. So infrastructure, in terms of infrastructure, I mean, Cyprus has one of the highest growth rates in the EU in terms of very high coverage networks, and it was the first country, I think, in the EU to introduce 5G. But again, in order to build a blockchain/crypto ecosystem, you need data miners, you need data centers, and many more other amenities which are currently lacking. And to be honest, there is good work being done internally. I mean, we're going to see the first launch of a data center in Larnaca. Universities like the University of Nicosia are offering courses in blockchain to educate the labor force and potentially upskill the labor force. But I still think that more needs to be done. Obviously, banking remains an issue, as we have raised before. And I think an important action that will propel everyone to adopt a pro-crypto mindset is actually the embracement of the government. And when we turn our attention back to 2023, the government created the DLT framework, the Distributed Ledger Technology Framework, which eventually and unfortunately got shelved. And I believe now, with the introduction of MiCA, the timing is right for the government to pick the DLT framework back from the shelves, clean it, polish it, and launch it. And in addition to that, I believe it would be a good idea for the government to instill a top-down level of confidence with the technology itself, and that would be done essentially by incorporating the technology in its modus operandi. I mean, as I said before, blockchain has many use cases. A use case that I can easily think of is to use smart contracts in large-scale infrastructure projects, and Cyprus has an abundance of these projects. Or it can use to track transactions within the Department of Town Planning and Permits, and this is an idea just at the top of my head. So there is an abundance of opportunities that can be done. And I do believe that without the support and the collaboration of both the public and the private sector, we will have difficulties in becoming the crypto hub that we want to be. And in the case of Invest Cyprus, we have an internal strategy document which spans from 2024 to 2026, which outlines the main sectoral pillars which we want to attract foreign direct investments. And these are basically to render Cyprus as a business and financial hub, to focus on tech, and thirdly on sustainable projects. And I think the timing is right now to either launch a fourth pillar or strategy or pillar 2.b, whatever you want to call it, which focuses on deep tech. And this encompasses an umbrella of technologies which can revamp business models and even spawn new industries, with blockchain being one of these technologies.
What I would like to add also is based on different on the business strategy. For example, if you are looking for a fast authorization, a low cost, a skills force, you are looking more about the startup business where they are most view is to apply in Eastern European company, Eastern European regulation. But if you are an established company, international company, that you need a local skill force, you need effective communication with the regulation to have a constructive feedback about your license, about the business model, how you can get authorization to utilize on the passport in it, is maybe Cyprus a most common jurisdiction. But also the business needs to understand what is their objective. And in crypto, and especially in MiCA, the competitiveness against the regulation is significant. So as Cyprus, we have to be careful to what do we offer to the international investor. We are not going to rush to get an approval in order to give them the satisfaction. It needs to be to see the long-term strategy. So by authorizing one international body, it's going to act as a magnet to startups, to other international companies. So we need to take step by step each time and review each application within a...
I think if I may, Christia, I think to that point of Loukas, I think, we need to, there has to be a general receptiveness to your point, Menelaos, about, crypto and decentralized finance. And this stems from, all across, basically, all sectors of business sectors, whether private sector, public sector, etc. I think there has to be, a receptiveness which is tied to a policy shift, probably, which will also, drive banks, I would say, because for a healthy financial system that, we want to have in Cyprus with regards to that will support and embrace crypto. I think crypto and as a hub, it is tied to basically payments, processing, etc., etc. So if you set up, say you set up your CASP in Cyprus, but at the same time you got the license from the regulator, you have, substance offices, etc., but at the same time you cannot bank locally, and you end up banking, with Deutsche Bank or a bank freak in Luxembourg, etc. I think that's a very big issue that basically drives, is one of the drivers that we need to address as a jurisdiction. But beyond that, fully aligned with what you mentioned about the lack of, crypto native talent. We have lawyers, we have, accountants, back office, compliance. We have all that. We are drawing from that, from the MiFID, times. However, and Loukas and Anatoly can also keep me honest here, but I think, from our experience, what we have seen is, in comparison with other EU member states, I mean, who are our competitors in the EU, really, as far as this subject matter is concerned? For now, it could be Malta, which has been our traditional competitor, Estonia, Lithuania, etc. Now, those jurisdictions, they're digital to a very great extent. So maybe we need to start from the small things, become digital, and that, starting small basically gets you the bigger results. And of course, less unnecessary regulatory complexities, which is again tied to the know-how and skill set of the various officers across the government, I would say. And to this point, and this is my last point on this subject, I would say that looking at what our competition does across the EU, I think there has to be some government incentives that would support, right, the fostering, the development of Cyprus as a crypto hub across the EU, because that is what we want. We have across our hands a very big opportunity that we need to, grasp on and take advantage of. Otherwise, unfortunately, I fear that we may, find ourselves in situations that we found ourselves in, a few decades ago about other big legislative changes that came across Europe. I don't want to name them, but I think everybody understands. So, absolutely.
And Grigoris on that, sorry, Menelaos, go for it.
I just wanted to add that basically I agree with the points raised by both of you, but I think in general we need to consider two keywords in this case. One of them is agility. We need to be agile enough to be able to respond quickly to what is happening both inside our country as well as around us, because if we do not respond quickly, we will miss the opportunity which is looking in front of us. Now, that does not take away that whatever needs to be done at the regulatory level, it needs to be proper and on a step-by-step basis. Nonetheless, I mean, as I said before, even though many of the Eastern European countries are ahead of us when it comes to the crypto and blockchain game, and also to their incentives, because they have introduced a lot of free economic zones, nonetheless, I believe that there is still an opportunity for Cyprus because, and I have given this a lot of thought for other matters, but I believe what makes Cyprus unique is actually the portfolio of things that it offers to create a very unique value proposition. It's not the corporate taxes per se, it's not the labor, it's not an individual characteristics, it's the portfolio of values which represent this country.
I agree with you, Menelaos, on that.
What I would like to add here is the crypto ecosystem cannot drive on its own. It needs effective support from the government, from supervision, the right initiatives. So this is interconnected, and they need to work hand by hand in order to create the ecosystem.
And absolutely, I think to your point, Menelaos, a MiCA license is not a distinct license in the sense that you have EMIs, MiFID firms, banks utilizing that, and a lot of current players within this very jurisdiction can utilize that license and therefore benefit the wider financial services industry that we have booming here in Cyprus. So it's just these little steps that we can take forward.
I would like to agree with all of you here, and my key takeaway is that yes, there should be an ecosystem, but to me it starts from a point of culture. And I think that is something we need to work on a little bit more on this island, because whatever new comes in, we like to embrace it, we want to embrace it, but we embrace it with caution instead of with open arms. And maybe if we spend some more of our resources trying to educate the people that are going to make this a reality, mainly the regulators, and make them have a culture of how do we make this happen in a controlled environment, then that would completely shift the discussion. And yes, I think in that moment Cyprus could have everything fall into place so that we do become an ecosystem. So I think that brings us to a close. Any closing remarks from you guys as to what you think a priority would be for Cyprus if we were to name one to make us into a crypto hub? Maybe Anatoly, you could share your views.
I think considering Cyprus being crypto hub, we have here open-minded regulator, but also important to have infrastructure for talented people to be acquired by the island for infrastructure for their families as well. So crypto mainly for security, IT. So these people are, I think like Cyprus, a lot of talented people here, but to further development, we need to build more and more infrastructure just for their usual life.
Absolutely. So with that, I want to thank you all for the very insightful discussion. If anyone has any questions, that would be a good time. Excellent. It means that we've covered everything. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.